Hello, my name is Jim Lucan, and I'm with Jim Lucan Outdoors here on this YouTube thingy. A lot of people have been asking me what kind of boat I use in some of these videos. So I thought I'd do a little review today of my boat, which is a 2016 XL Bay Pro 183. And let me just be clear from the outset, I'm not being paid by anyone. I'm not being sponsored by anyone. This is just an honest, relatively long-term review of an owner assessing a boat that he purchased a couple years ago. I'll tell you some things I like about the boat, and I'll tell you some things I don't like about the boat. You can make the decision. I've owned a lot of boats. Some of them were great boats, some of them were not so good boats. I consider this Bay Pro 183 to be one of the better boats I've ever purchased. And let me tell you a little bit about the kinds of places where I use a boat, which will help you decide whether you want to buy this boat. I live on the coast of South Carolina. We have all kinds of different water. We have freshwater rivers like the one I'm parked on here. We have inshore marshes where the water's skinny as can be, sometimes less than a foot deep. We have inshore areas. We have places where we have casino boats throwing up huge wakes. It's a rough and very diverse environment to run a boat. And so you need something that's kind of good at a variety of different tasks. And I'll try to give you some sense as to whether this boat is the one that can handle all of these different tasks. So maybe I forgot to mention, but I'm going to mention now, this is not a riveted boat. This is a welded boat. And you can see some of the welds right here. All of the welds look really high quality. They're well formed. And I'm going to say that when this boat is going through rough water, it's relatively quiet. There's not a lot of banging or bouncing. In fact, there's almost no banging or bouncing. It feels like it's built well. It feels like it's built solid as a rock. And you can tell that going through rough water. There's just not a lot of noise. It cuts right through the water, and really the only thing you hear is the hull sort of cutting through the water. Now, I suspect there's some of you out there that take a lot of people out fishing, and you go out in really big water, and you're saying, that boat's too small for me. And you're probably right. If you take a lot of people out fishing and you're out in the ocean, you probably don't want this boat. I can only probably fit 4 people in this boat, but that's okay with me. I usually fish by myself or with 1 or maybe 2 other people, and so I don't need a huge boat as far as carrying a lot of people. As far as dealing with rough water, let me just repeat what I said earlier. I fish out of Little River Inlet a lot, and there's casino boats, there's yachts. There's boats out there that you wouldn't believe how large they are, throwing up 3-4 foot wakes. Occasionally, I've had water break over the bow of this boat, but I want to tell you right now, this is one of the best bailing boats I've ever seen. If water comes over the bow of this boat, it runs very quickly to these drains, and it disappears instantly, and then you hit the bilge and pump it out. And so it's an incredible boat as far as the design in terms of getting water in the inside the boat. It drains out very quickly, so you really don't have to worry if you take on some water. There's some other considerations as to why you might want to buy a smaller boat like this, one of which is towing. I tow this boat with a Jeep Grand Cherokee. The trailer's relatively light. Many times I can't even tell the boat is behind my Grand Cherokee. I think the hull weighs something like 1,400 pounds. The motor's probably another 450 or something like that. And so we're talking about a 2,000 pound rig here. It's really light. I can tow it with no problems whatsoever, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't have to buy an expensive tow vehicle to get this boat from one place to the next. And I'll show you a little bit later why it's important to have a smaller boat in terms of parking it in your driveway. So let me very quickly go over the storage in this boat, and there's a lot of it. There's a nice anchor locker up here in the front. There's a a cooler here that's actually drained, which I keep fishing tackle in. There's a side locker over here on this side. There's an identical side locker on this side, both of which can hold rods. I don't put rods in them, I put them in the rod holders. And that's pretty much it as far as the front is concerned. If we walk back here to the back, there's a nice live well right here behind the bench seat. And for a long time, I thought that was it. But then one day I was cleaning the boat, and big surprise, I lifted up one of these jump seats, and both of these jump seats have storage underneath them also. So there's really gobs of storage in this boat, lots of storage for such a small 18-footer. If we come back here to the bilge area, I also really like the way everything's kind of accessible. It has an 18-gallon fuel tank right here. You can get to everything, no pulling up the boards to get inside. The starting battery and accessory battery is right here. The pumps for the live well and the bilge are all right down there. Everything really nicely accessible. And you probably can't see this, but there's also a really nice touch in this boat. They've built in a circular channel. You can see that little piece of string right there. That little piece of string runs through a channel, and so if you need to run transducers, electric wires from the console back here to the battery, you can do it without any problem. Great forethought as far as I'm concerned in terms of customizing a boat or what the owner might want to do to the boat. So it's got a channel there that you can pull wires through and bring some power either from the battery up to the console or bring things back from the console here. The thing that's really deceiving about this boat, that even though it's an 18-footer, relatively short, it has a huge deck on the back here. I think it's 95 inches. You can walk here, you can stand over here with two people can fish back here at the back and not interfere with each other. It's rock stable back here, lots of room in the back, just a huge casting deck up here in the back, great for still fishing or going along the bank. Interesting thing about this boat is it's kind of shaped like an arrow. It sort of tapers to the front, so it's relatively narrow up here in the front. Really only one person can fish from the front. But there's plenty of room for one person up here to fish, and again, it's pretty stable up here in the front. So one person up here in the front, two back there in the back, simply because it's such a wide beam. So it's one of these hull shapes that kind of starts out narrow and flares out a lot toward the back, which really gives it a high amount of stability. One of the other things I really like about this boat is this Sprayon Liner. I don't know if you can see it. I'll do a little close-up here, but it's white with some black flecks in it. It's kind of shiny. Doesn't let you slip. It's sprayed all over the boat. And I'm going to tell you right now, this stuff is great. You can go out on a day of fishing, can be covered with blood, mud, all kinds of things. Take a hose to it, it goes right out of here and cleans up really nicely. One of the other things I really liked about this boat is it has a rail channel along each side where you can mount rod holders. Some boats don't have this. I don't know why they don't have this, but this has a recessed rail with a little hole where you can mount rod holders. You could mount probably 10 of them on this side. There's a rail over here for mounting rod holders also. Really great feature as far as putting rod holders and other sorts of accessories on the railing of this boat. So here's the cockpit. I actually mounted this depth finder myself, drilled a hole into the fiberglass cockpit or the console, and let me tell you, it was good and thick. It took some doing to get the hole down through there, and again, it allowed me, that channel under the boat allowed me to run the wires down through the tunnel and back to where I could mount the transducer on the back beam. But it was not a big problem. So cup holders on the console, I got a mount for a net up here, and of course rod holders on each side. So here's the console. It seems to be a pretty solid console. There are 2 trolling motor batteries and a 3-bank battery charger in there. Everything fits in there, but I'm going to tell you, it's a tight fit, and there's also wiring harnesses hanging in there. So there's not a lot of room in there for everything that gets crammed in there, but it all fits, and it sort of keeps all this stuff neatly and out of the way. Sometimes it's little details that end up making you really like a boat. This particular boat has these recessed chrome cleats on 4 corners of the boat, so when there's not a rope around them, they actually tuck down into the hull. They're really nice as far as tying mooring lines or other things, and so that's just a really nice touch. You don't have to deal with these cleats along the rail. And finally, I just want to say that the steering wheel, many of the components like these rod holders, the hardware on the hatch covers, all of them are stainless steel, and I'm going to say right now, no sign of rust. And I use this boat in salt water a lot, so it must be high quality stainless steel because I don't see any rust anywhere, and this is a 2016 model. So as you can see, I have a Yamaha 115 regular 4-stroke engine mounted on this boat, and it has a manual jack plate on it. It's raised up, about 30% of the way, I think. This, again, is a relatively light boat, and let me say, a 115 on this boat gets it on plane instantly. There's no porpoising, there's no waiting around. You are instantly on plane. 115 is the maximum horsepower for this boat, and it works really well as far as getting it on speed, and I'd say top speed is around 50 miles an hour, although you're going to need some pretty calm water to max it out at that speed. Okay, let's talk about some things that maybe aren't so positive about this particular boat. When I first got it, about a day after I got it from a guy, all the electronics up here on the panel quit on me. No power to the console whatsoever. Took me about a day to figure out what the problem was. Back behind this panel are those typical little tabs that are stuck on the gauges and things. One of those little tabs had cracked and was just starting to peel off, and it created this intermittent, very difficult to diagnose problem with power to the console. Once I found that tab, replaced it for literally 25 cents, everything was fine. And so the reason why that tab broke, I think, is there's a lot of wires back there and a lot of tension on those wires, and they really should maybe add some more length to those wires so you don't have so much tension on those wires hanging from the gauges. Now there's one other really annoying part about this particular boat that they should fix in the future. Listen. All of these hatches have these metal hinges, and through time these metal hinges start to rust, and every one of them has a squeak. And it's even worse because if I get up here and I'm fishing, well, it's not going to do it now because I put some oil in there, but, oh, there it is. And I'm out here fishing, these hatch covers are creaking and making all kinds of noise. So that's a really annoying aspect of this boat, and hopefully I'll be able to get that sorted out at some point in time. Now, not that this really matters, but I've had this boat at boat ramps, and I've had guys come up to me and say, "Nice looking boat." And you know what? I shouldn't care about stuff like that, but it's kind of nice when somebody sees your boat and says, "Look, that's a really nice looking boat. It's got nice lines. It's got these slanting sort of things on the gunnel back here on the back. It looks like sort of an arrow. It looks fast. It's just pleasing on the eye, and the white color, of course, adds to it. And that liner in there that cleans up really easily just makes for a really nice package. So one of the obvious benefits of a bay-style boat is versatility. I used to fish for bass a lot when I lived on freshwater lakes. I still fish for bass every now and then. With this boat, I can get on the trolling motor, I can run it along the edge of wherever I am, and I can still fish for bass, just like if I had a bass boat. So it's a really a versatile boat. Lets me do all kinds of different things. Tomorrow, I might be out in the ocean or near the ocean, anchored up, fishing for red drum or trout or whatever. And so it's the kind of boat you can do a lot of different kinds of fishing with, and it does it all pretty well. It's sort of a jack of all trades boat. Well, my boat review video kind of turned into a fishing video. Started off trying to show you all how versatile my Bay Pro 183 is for catching bass, and then I started catching actually a lot of bass, like one right after the other, and then my my boat review video kind of turned into a fishing video, but I think you get the idea. Thank you for watching. All right, well, I got a couple little after pieces I want to show you here. This is a really unique boat review. How many boat reviews actually show you the bottom of a boat after it's been used for 3 or 4 years? So take a look at this boat. First thing you should notice here is there's a really nice sturdy bow guard that runs almost 1/3 of the way down the front of the bow. You can beach it, and that bow guard, of course, is going to be what takes the brunt of the wear and tear. And you can actually see where the paint is worn off of this bow guard, but by and large, the hull is looking in pretty good shape. We move on back a little further. We can see that there's an area back there that obviously I've scraped on the sand. Right there, maybe some oyster shells. But once we get on back to the back, I'm going to tell you right now that the bottom of this boat looks pretty much new. And so we can see the weld running down the middle here. And I would say that by and large, the bottom of this boat after 4 years of use looks pretty good, and most of this can be attributed to this bow guard up here that's protecting the bow of the boat. Another final piece. Notice that they put a nice little metal transducer bracket welded onto the back here so that you don't have to drill holes in the transom. Great idea. The only problem, of course, is they positioned it right here under this step in the bottom of the hull, which creates a little turbulence. And so when I'm at pretty much full speed, I lose contact with the bottom because of the turbulence here. Would have been nicer had they just moved this bracket over a little bit to get in a little bit of calmer water. But nevertheless, a good idea. So one of the things you might not think about when you buy a boat is whether you can push it yourself into a parking spot. This XL Bay Pro 183 had to fit in this spot next to my house. And there's another nice thing about this boat, and I'll show you right now. Parking done.